This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC Pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's pod. This is for the week of June 9th, 2025. And just so everybody knows, we're recording this on Sunday in case some big news drops on Monday. The recording comes out on Tuesday. Much like last week, we recorded on Monday and all the news popped out Tuesday morning. Yep. We're going to talk about that. It's the closure of Rivers America and Tom Sawyer's Island. This week or yesterday, Muppet Vision 3D closed or had its last showing as it closed down. We got rock and roller coaster news. I had an article posted on touring plans about numbers and the affordability of Disney World. There's a lot to talk about, Phil. We have it all written down.
Yeah.
My intro is terrible at like encapsulating all this stuff. There's just some major points, Phil, that have come out.
Like you mentioned right before we recorded, it's not like a lot of things. It's just a couple big things that deserve a lot of discussion and have been occupying a lot of social media and stuff like that. So.
Well, yeah, there's been a lot of social media frenzy on a lot of different fronts, and I think it's like all this stuff is like predictable. We've been just waiting for like the hammer to fall,
right,
and things to turn, and now it finally happens, and people have opinions, yep. Right? So let's get started. Let's just dive into it. You have a couple of things that you want to talk about at the top of the show, so we need a lot of time, and yep. I'm filibustering right now. I don't know why, so let's just get right to it.
Yeah. So first thing, just a real quick thing. It was kind of pointed out to us by Herdamaniac on the boards that last week we neglected to mention about how Epic Universe opened. I think there's a few reasons for that. One is we haven't gone or we're not going, so we only have so much to add to the conversation.
Yes.
I think also with all the previews and stuff, it almost feels like old news.
Yeah.
But we, congratulations obviously to Universal for a successful opening. It's the first major theme park in the area for like the last 25 years, and seems like it's getting off to a great start. They started off really low crowds. It reminded me, watching it online, reminded me of the 50th at Disney, where all the lines were for merch and the rides were like walk-ons. But they seem to be ramping up the crowds. And so obviously with my trip coming up in August, I'll be following that and looking at different touring plans. And they've been tweaking things. Now all of a sudden they made Dark Universe part of early entry and stuff. So a lot to kind of follow as they adjust and move things on. But it's great to have it seemed 6 years in the making or whatever, and it's finally open. So
yeah, we're not a Universal podcast. I've never been to Universal in Florida, so it's like I can't really comment on a lot of that stuff. I've watched all the videos everybody else has watched on social media. From a Disney World perspective, we can't really see the impact of this for at least 6 months, probably a year, until we get something like attendance numbers and see how that kind of jives with things and hotel occupancy rates and that type of thing. Yeah. And I'm not going to give my opinion on Epic Universe until I actually see it myself, or you are going to be seeing it in a couple months. And so, maybe that'll be the showcase for everybody's opinion.
Yeah, the main takeaway I have for it is just I have to sort of pray to the rain gods that it doesn't rain on my day there, because that seems to really impact things. But I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, so we'll see as more things develop over time. I'm sure it'll become part of our show as we talk about fitting in an epic day to your plans and stuff like that. But that'll be a little down the road.
Yes.
The other big topic, and we'll probably make this more of our first discussion topic, is that, as Jason mentioned yesterday, as of we're recording this, is Saturday the 7th, was the last day for all of the rest of Muppets Courtyard. So Muppet 3D had its last showing. It was the closing for Pizza Rizzo and just the whole area and stuff like that. So my big takeaway, and I don't know how you wanted to talk about this, Jason, but it's just, I'm sad to see it go, but at the same time, we don't often get 34 years of something that we love. And I think we just should be thankful for that, and thankful that I got to go down for a couple of trips this year, got to experience it with you for your first time, got to introduce it to my kids and stuff like that. So I'm kind of more appreciative than sad at it. I know it wasn't going to last forever, right? At some point it was going to close. And I'm glad it went off with a bang. Crowds were out, crowds were great, crowds were in a good mood. cast members did a great job managing it. It was interesting how they passed out wristbands like at like
Well,
8:30 in the morning for the final show. But
I mean, like that's a lot that's happened.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's kind of like go like, because I think the attraction deserves, and the reaction to the fan base deserves a little bit more like substance on the show as we discuss it, right? Because it was all over the place. So I got to see it for the first time. I'm a Muppet fan. I'm not a big Muppet fan. Obviously your shirt game is strong right now, wearing your Muppet shirt. If you're not watching, Phil's wearing an awesome Muppet shirt. I think that's the one you wore when we were down there a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not many things in Disney World that last 34 years, right? And I think for something that was not an original Disney IP, for it to last that long, speaks to its longevity and the respect Disney's had for it, right? However, that IP is not prolific in the fact that it is a business, so it doesn't sell the merch, it doesn't fill up the seats. Like, if that show had the capacity demand that it did for like the last weekend that it was available, like consistently, it wouldn't be closing at this point, guaranteed. But the fact that the shows are mostly half full most of the time, the merch shop, which should have been open this weekend, that's another big thing. That's crazy.
That was crazy. They didn't have any like merch. They talked about having merch for when it moves, but they hadn't had any closing merch. It's surprising.
So I mean, that was kind of strange, but I know it has a strong following. It has huge fans, and I loved watching the true fans of this attraction celebrate not only its life but a respectful ending to it. I loved how Disney was really smart, where they handed out yellow bands at basically rope drop. Not was it rope? No, it was early entry.
It was started during early entry. They handed it out. Yep.
And so that there wasn't some shenanigans at like the very last showing where people were rushing and trying to be the last and causing a ruckus, where everybody's trying to be like probably being respectful outside and have people like get into fights and all this other stuff. All the fighting and disgruntlement and anger of not making it happened 12 hours before, or whatever amount of hours beforehand. So I think Disney did a good job with that. And I think it was probably one of the best send-offs I've seen to a Disney property that I can remember.
Yep,
I'm trying to think of anything else. Like Splash, it was just mostly vitriol for a lot of people in its send-off. That just didn't have. I don't know if anybody could celebrate it because of it, but like that's the last one. But I think generally the fans of the Muppets are not going on rioting online and yelling at Disney. They've come to, they know that it's time, and they've celebrated it, which I think is wonderful. I just think everybody out there that's consuming social media or consuming YouTube channels or whatever it might be, that I think you need to be able to hopefully you're able to parse between the people that are true fans of the Muppets and sad to see things go and consume that content and feel joyful in its memory, versus all the clickbait stuff, like instant reactions, people trying to get clicks and stuff like that, like hating on Disney because they're getting rid of the Muppets Bowl. You weren't there a year ago, loving on the Muppets type of thing. So like, stick with the people that you trust and you love. And I'm trying to filter out the kind of words I had pre-show about this, Phil.
No, there's definitely some, like you said, clickbait or just kind of the rage-inducing people that are trying to push that angle for it. And there is some elements of it. Could Disney have kept this open a little longer? Probably, but it's had its great run, and I think the more people were celebrating it and celebrating being together there with it and that sort of thing, and I think that's what we should focus on and not get riled up. I always try to remember the algorithms in social media are designed to push things you that will get you angry, because they know people engage more when they're angry. So try to remember that if you see something Muppet related that's getting you angry, is that that's not what most people are thinking. That's what is being forced to you, so you have that reaction. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And if you're on certain message boards and stuff like that, it's the same people kind of tossing out that message. The ignore feature is very friendly to you, and just don't let your opinion be swayed by angry, loud people on the internet.
Yeah.
Like, just be you, feel what you got to feel, and it's valid because it's your feels.
Yep.
So I'm with you on that one.
Yep.
So,
But like you said,
Division-
it went out really well, though. It
Yep.
seemed like all the effects, for the most part, were working all day. You know, that there were crowds. They were lining through like Rise of the Resistance queue and stuff like that. That was fun to see. But it seems like they were really packing them in the theaters. Sometimes it was standing room only and stuff because they wanted to get as many people in as they could. Like you said, people with the wristbands got into the last show. We know the last person into the theater was Jim Henson's daughter, which was really nice to see and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was just a really great day, and it kind of, I think people are just happy it went out on a high note, kind of, versus, you know, you mentioned Splash, that was kind of running down, you know, half the animatronics weren't working and stuff. This kind of went out on a high note, I think.
From everything that I saw and read, it really felt like a celebration.
Yeah.
At the very end, which is absolutely fantastic. Like, one of my favorite rides in Disney World is Pirates, and if for some reason they were closing it to put in something else, I would be angry because all things do come to an end. But I would hope that any ending to one of my favorite attractions would be met with the community and fun that Muppets met with yesterday. I thought that was absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
So let's move on. There was another major announcement that really caught me off guard on Tuesday with a Disney Parks blog announcement, and it had to do with the Rivers of America. So I don't think it's surprising what this announcement is to anybody listening right now, because if you don't know what happened last Tuesday, you're probably not listening to the show at the moment. So what happened, Phil?
So Disney did put out another blurb and stuff like that about what is happening into the Frontierland area. The key takeaways from this was they announced that the last day for the Rivers of America and the steamship and for Tom Sawyer Island will be July 6th, with it closing on July 7th. So obviously we knew from last year, you know, that this was going to be happening. So if people had close to a year, about 9 months at least, to get down and see it if they wanted, but they're only getting about a month or so's notice from the official point of this will be closing, which seemed a little short to some people. That was one question I had. Do you think they should have given more notice, you know, for Muppets and Dinosaur and things like that? They gave quite a bit more time. Or is it one of those things like people knew it was going to happen at some point, it's going to happen, and it just is what it is?
I don't think they should. I mean, should they have given more official notice? Sure. More is always better, right? Like, it's fine. But, like, I don't think it's short. I mean, these are not very popular attractions. You know, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of loud people out there says, how dare Disney do blah, 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 and all this other type of stuff. But the Liberty Bell is not very full most of the time. Tom Sawyer's Island is an accident waiting to happen. I'm surprised more people aren't injured on that island than there are. And whenever I go in there, there's people on there, right? You can always see the skiffs running back and forth, the rafts running back and forth, but like there's not like there's tons of people like waiting to getting in there. So yes, there's a lot. Yes, it's closing. My only sadness is my daughter really wanted to see Tom Sawyer's Island for the first time, and she's never did. And I could have sworn this would have been open throughout the summer. I was completely wrong on that. I did for a half second, Phil, think about like a before a down and back, like
really,
literally, like I don't. My phone is my camera right now. I can't look. I think I'm like 44 days until my vacation. I'm thinking like I have points on my United account. I can go down, blah blah blah, and all this other stuff. I'm like, but is it really worth the $600 it would cost me to bring somebody down there? Like, you know, $50 for the flights, $200 for the tickets. I'm not going back. I'm still not doing the madness that Matt went through and coming back the same day. It's $100. What did we spend? $125 for the room. Tom Sawyer's Island is not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. So should they have given more notice? Sure. Like, you know, allow me to understand that 4 months ago, but I don't think Disney could have figured out when it was closing because there's probably a lot of moving parts behind.
Yeah, I mean, we know that you've had it in your construction updates that they started the laydown yards and always waiting for the water table approved mills and stuff like that. So, but we knew it was coming. I think anybody who was like an absolute must do, I have to see this again, probably figured out a way to get down. Obviously sucks for people like you that had the trip planned there. You thought you'd get to do it, but you'll adapt and adjust, and it's, it is kind of is what it is. At this
As
point.
as much as my daughter is like sad that she's not going to be see it, like she's ultimately excited about all the other things that she's going to do. She's
Yeah.
like, all right, whatever. But it's still Disney World. We're going to have a wonderful time.
Yeah.
Which is what the attitude I wish a lot of other people might have, but they don't.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we got the announcement. We got
So we know those things are closing for real for then for forever. They did say that the boardwalk area and stuff like that will remain open for at least a little while, because people are wondering about how's this going to work for viewing areas for the new parade that's starting July 20th and stuff like that. So it seems like there won't be walls and stuff up still for a little while, but we haven't gotten word on that. They did mention that the Walt Disney World Railroad will remain in operation. However, it will only be in what they're calling shuttle mode. So instead of doing the full grand tour around the park, it will just be going back and forth between the Fantasyland, the Circus Area station, and Main Street. So just connecting those two stations. So it becomes more of a point-to-point type thing versus a full tour. It was a little interesting that you would think they could still go to the Frontierland station. There's still some gap between that and then where the entry for the river and stuff is, but I'm sure they have some reasons for why they weren't physically able to do that.
I mean, for those that don't know, when shuttle mode means like the train will go backwards, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to reverse seats so people don't get ill going backwards. Some people get like car sick, for lack of a better term. I think it's, they're probably going to do some construction around the track, so they don't want to have to close it and open it, close it and open it. You might have to mess with the bridge a little bit or anything else to bring equipment in. I think part of it might be that they don't want people on the train taking pictures throughout its construction. I think they want to kind of keep some of those updates
from that area
privately.
you'd be able to see.
Yeah. So I think that might have. I don't think that's like, we don't want any pictures taken, so we're going to shut down everything. Like, I think that's just one more reason for it. It's like ease of access, ease of construction, not having to worry about the safety of the railroad constantly as they're moving things in and out, right? Like, I think that like the operational kind of questions for that type of thing, I think that's primary. Like, that's number one. But I think like maybe like several tiers below this are like, okay, we're not going to get like daily updates from like, people taking pictures and stuff like that. Because again, a lot of people are raising the stink about like, you're getting rid of the riverboat, you're getting rid of the rivers. This is terrible. They're destroying Magic Kingdom. Why giving them more like fodder to continue that conversation too as well?
Yeah, that's a good thought. I didn't think of that one. I didn't know if maybe they were going to be doing some adjustments to that station itself. Also, I saw some people speculate it could confuse people if the train's going different ways, like if they're getting on at Main Street and they want to go to Frontierland, but it's coming through and going the other way or something like that. I don't know, but that at least I think it's definitely a positive that they'll keep it up versus just taking it down. So at least you'll still hear the train whistle. You still see it at Main Street and stuff like that. So I think it's overall a positive.
I mean, going through like the COVID years when the railroad was during the Tron construction was not running, not seeing and hearing the train at Main Street was definitely like a loss. So I'm glad that they're keeping it for sure.
Yep. And they also gave us new concept art and a lot more details around the Cars Land area. We know that is now going to be called Piston Peak National Park. And in the details, what I focused on or what jumped out at me was they spent a lot of time focusing on sight lines and sound bleed and kind of how it's all going to work as this national park area.
Well, let me. That's a very good point. Those points are not really prevalent in the Disney Parks blog that they wrote, but like if you go to, DSNY,
they had kind of like a mini media event type thing where they gave them a lot more information. It seems like.
So there's a good, really great post that I read on WDW Magic before all the other blogs and vloggers kind of wrote their things. There's more detail out there, and I thought this was really interesting. So I don't know where you want to start with this, Phil.
I'll just from the blog though. It does talk about that, guests will be able to see and explore a visitor's lodge, a ranger's headquarters. There will be trails all set within Disney and Pixar's Cars universe. And it's said to make sure the buildings fit naturally with the surrounding areas. Imagineers are using a style of architecture called parkitecture, which was developed by the National Park Service to create structures that harmonize with the natural environment. Mm-hmm. What also jumped out at me was, and I think it was more from some of those interviews with media, was that they said like when you come in that way especially from Liberty Square, they really want to make sure what you're seeing are trees and the mountains and waterfalls and stuff like that. You're not going to see cars zipping around and stuff like that. It's like from that angle, you're really just going to see the natural world that really does tie into what the broader definition of a frontier is. The concept art shows a lot more water, like almost like a sizable river
Okay,
in
cool.
there and stuff like that. Yeah.
There's a couple points here. First, I want to talk about like sight lines, right? They really emphasize that the cars. It's not like you're going to be at Haunted Mansion and then seeing cars like.
Yeah, and they
run
specifically
around, right?
even mentioned noise bleed, that they wanted to make sure that you wouldn't hear the cars when you're over by Haunted Mansion and
Right.
stuff like that.
So Frontierland is no longer going to be cowboys and Indians Frontierland. It's going to be the Great West, adventure, nature, mountains and forests, and all this type of stuff. So it's going to be more of a natural
It's going to have the
Frontierland.
North Woods, the Bayou, like all the different kind of parts of the North America, not just that Old West cowboy and Indian style.
And they're going to try to have that transitioned across Frontierland from the Haunted Mansion, Liberty Square, all the way over to Big Thunder Mountain, right? Yep. So I really liked the emphasis that they had on blending nature, making sure it fits well. It wasn't like something was just like plopped down on it, right?
Yep.
Now, your second point where you said they're emphasizing water more, obviously everybody picked up on that.
Yep.
What I find very amusing is when the original concept art came around at D23 about the new Cars Land, or actually wasn't at D23. It was a couple days after D23 on that Friday, right? They mentioned it showed water, it showed waterfalls, it showed geysers, it showed all this type of stuff, and everybody was just like essentially dumping over the whole idea. Oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. They're going to destroy the natural beauty of Magic Kingdom. There's not going to be water. It's all going to be cement. All the normal like hater type of stuff, right? And then all of a sudden, this cartoon rendition of concept art, like it's a cartoon, right? Like this is meant to be like fun and like kind of portraying it in a cartoon sense, what it's going to look like. And then all of a sudden, people started taking the concept art like seriously, like, oh, the river here is like 30 pixels wider than the pixels that in the original concept art. It's showing more of this, more like, to me, who overanalyzed the original concept art, much to probably, terribly wrong. I shouldn't have been doing that. But it's like, guys, there's been waterfalls and water and everything else in the original concept. Maybe it wasn't wide in this artist's rendition, but it's just concept art. Yeah. And then you're shown something like the original concept art was more like realistic, like art style. And then you find one that's a cartoon and you take that one more seriously than the original concept that was like, to me, what I think a lot of people took was WDI's description of the new land and then comparing how many more pixels wider the cartoon was versus the original concept art. But WDI emphasized there's water, there's geysers, there's waterfalls. They're worried about sight lines. The Piston Peak is not going to be visible from outside, from a certain vantage point, so you don't see something that's not natural outside the Cars universe from like Haunted Mansion or Liberty Square, stuff like that. So I know WDI could do this because if you look at Disney Springs, that is a gorgeous rock work and hiding different things and giving you different good sight lines and stuff like that. I have absolute faith in WDI for doing this. Hopefully they follow through on their abilities, right? Obviously. To me, getting back to my point was, a lot of people wanted to believe that this was going to be terrible based on the original concept art. And I've never saw so many 180s on opinions of Disney in this day and age, post-COVID, of a project than I did this one over the last week.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that, Phil?
I think so. Yeah. Or at least the 180, at least from the concept art of like that. Like you said, there's still obviously negatives about it existing at all, but for the design of it, it went from pretty negative and how it's going to be cars racing around to like now everybody's super into this natural world and all the water and stuff like that, just because it got more of a focus in this new rendering versus the other one.
I'm just flabbergasted by so many people. Like, guys, you should have been excited for the first thing because this is what they explained, but they're like, I guess whoever was writing this was speaking was like, hey guys, this is what we're trying to do. I mean, I didn't know we had to hammer it over your head, but we know that this is important. We know that this is
clearly they made it like, I think they went out of their way to emphasize it because people were not getting it. Now, of course, other people seem to think like they've pressured Disney into changing their plans and it wasn't going to have water before. Now it does. If that makes them feel better, fine. But I think it's just more they're emphasizing it more. And they talked about the geysers and the walkways and stuff like that, which was other people's concerns. Would you be able to walk through it and stuff? So all the things that I think were present from the start, they're maybe that people had concerns about. They're just making sure that's more of a focus and understood. Like you said, hitting people over the head if you need to.
The one thing I did kind of pick up from the language was the walking trails. Like that language wasn't in like the original description.
No, and it talks about like the geysers and the pools, like the rainbow pools, and how that's going to kind of flow down from and kind of, I don't know if incorporated fully, but like kind of tie into Big Thunder Mountain and stuff like that. I think that's really cool how there's going to be walking trails and hopefully areas for people to kind of sit down and chill out and kind of get a little bit of that escapism that you could get from Tom Sawyer Island, where you can kind of escape the hustle and bustle a little bit. Hopefully those areas allow for that.
Yeah, I liked all the messaging that they did, and I think you have to be able to read in between the lines, you know, that like this is what they wanted originally. Like, there's, you know, I just recalled, because in your notes there isn't a mention of I think it was Hollywood Insider or something that mentioned that Josh D'Amaro has an inside track on becoming the next CEO of Disney. I think there's not really much to talk about because it's just like rumors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this is Josh D'Amaro's like project, right? Like,
I mean, we've talked about that for a while, that this is going to get the money it needs because this is basically his legacy, whether he's the CEO after this or not. Like,
so the last time there was a CEO change, or last time there was a CEO change, it was Chapek, and he just nixed a lot of stuff. But before that, New Fantasyland changed significantly when the president of Parks and Entertainment was changed. I think it was Staggs. That's what Staggs came on board, and he changed a lot of like all the princess stuff and how New Fantasyland was good stuff. So if people thinking things are going to change when the new CEO comes about, like it's not. Like this is in. Right. And I think Josh D'Amaro, most people hate on him for one reason or the other. I don't have a personal opinion of the man. He seems genuine when you talk to him, but he's also a corporate.
Yeah, it's always hard to tell how much is genuine versus show, for sure.
But like, I think he grew up in the parks, and I know this is a long tangent here, but like, he's a guy that grew up. He started off in Animal Kingdom and went to ABD and et cetera, et cetera. I think if you're a Parks fan, like you do not want anyone other than Josh D'Amaro at the helm. You might not like what he's spending money on, but you know he's going to be spending a lot of money on Disney World and other projects. So I'm kind of excited about that. That being said, Rivers of America is closing. Tom Sawyer's Island is closing. Things are starting. Walls are going to be going up in a couple months. I'm looking forward to it. Before I go into the IP itself, did we miss anything on the announcement?
The only thing two quick things. One thing aside with all the walking paths and stuff like that, one side benefit I could see is adjusting the queue for the Haunted Mansion to actually be a little bit nicer. Like, kind of feels a little forced into where it is now and stuff. With it being open, I think that could be just like a little side benefit. The other thing is they talked a little bit more about a new character that's going to be introduced for this, a new car. That's going to be named, that's the Ranger for Piston Peak. That is Ranger J. Audubon Woodlore. So it's going to be a unique character just for Walt Disney World. So obviously it's within the Cars universe, but along with Orange Bird and Figment and stuff, we're now going to have another new Disney character. And it's a play on an old-timey character that was called Audubon Woodlore. This is Autobahn now, like the road in Germany, versus Audubon, like the artist Woodlore, who appeared in shorts that featured Donald Duck and Humphrey the Bear. So, for all these people that say Disney like forgets its history and stuff like that, then they pull out something like this where they're referencing like a cartoon from the 30s and 40s and stuff like that.
They're always pulling out these references. I don't know what people are talking about. I don't.
So I thought that was a really nice touch, and I believe they officially said he will be an animatronic in the area and stuff like that. So that's exciting, I think. So yeah, I think we hit on all the big elements to it. The big question now is just when walls are going to go up and stuff like that, which we don't know that officially.
I'm super excited about this project. I mean, like, Galaxy's Edge was exciting, but like more for what the end result was going to be. Like, I didn't really follow the construction other than like, it looks almost done. When is it going to open?
Yeah.
I'm really excited to watch the progress of the face of the Earth change over time. I'm very excited about this one. My last question about the whole Cars Land thing is, I've seen this pop up on social media and the forums and everything else like that. And they're saying that the Cars IP itself doesn't belong in the Magic Kingdom. And this flabbergasts me, Phil. Like I think I've used the word flabbergast twice in this podcast. I've hit my
Quota for the day.
quota. Thank you. Yes. Do you understand what people are asking? Because I think anything can belong in the Magic Kingdom, right? Like,
Yeah, I'm surprised when they say in the Magic Kingdom at all. I guess I can see the argument that you, like anthropomorphic cars with smiley faces and stuff like that zipping around Frontierland, especially if you have the Frontierland you grew up with, saying they don't fit there. I can kind of see, but all of Magic Kingdom, it's like there's so many fantasy elements and like aliens playing piano and talking and singing bears and like I don't know. It just it's so much fantasy and out there. Like why can't Cars as an IP fit there? So I don't know. I'm surprised when they say that. Like it's one thing if people are like, oh, I'd rather they use Cars for the Speedway or something like that. Okay, I don't
sure, why
necessarily
not?
agree with that. I can understand that argument, but to say it doesn't belong anywhere in Magic Kingdom and should just be at Hollywood Studios or something like that, I don't. That surprises me. So I don't know. I don't know if they just have the Magic Kingdom as a castle park should stay kind of in those classic areas and not introduce new things or something. I don't know, but it's similar things probably when people were saying Galaxy's Edge didn't fit in Disneyland and stuff like that. I don't know. I was a little surprised by this one.
Yeah, I mean, somebody said like Frontierland is only about like the Cowboys and Indians, I guess, even though you had Splash and you had Big Thunder Mountain and Haunted Mansion, I guess, is part of. I know it's technically part of Liberty Square, but it's like opened into Frontierland, like you could see it. Fantasyland is just not just like fairies and pixie dust type of stuff. It could be like anything. Like anything can happen.
And one thing I was thinking of, I mean, it's still in Disneyland. It used to be a Magic Kingdom. Was they had Mr. Toad, who the whole ride was a toad driving a car, and you go to hell and stuff like that. Like that's okay, but you can't have these anthropomorphic cars. I was a little surprised.
Like they're singing bears, singing modern Disney songs.
Yeah.
Like you can have cars with faces on them driving around, and not to mention that there are rally races and motorcycle races and car races all throughout the West, like whether it's in deserts or forests or canyons, and like this stuff happens. So I think it's a good fit. I just want to throw that out there, Phil, because when people are wrong on the internet, it gets me angry. I have to say something, so I had to throw that one in there. So what's the next thing that we had?
The next thing, maybe I should tie this earlier to the Muppets, but we did get a little bit of a timeline. They announced on with the closure of Muppet Vision that they will be moving over to Rock and Roller Coaster, as we knew. It sounds like it's officially going to be called Rock and Roller Coaster, starring the Muppets. And they said it will be coming in 2026. So we didn't know the timeline. We knew this was one that could be a fairly quick turnover. So we didn't know if they do it now or wait until more things are done or something like that. But it's going to be another thing coming in 2026. There's now going to be a number of, nothing major, but quite a few medium-sized things, I guess, coming in 2026. And they also said fans of Aerosmith can see the current version. They use the term through 2025. So if I had to guess, this is going to run through the holiday season, through Run Disney weekend, and January 15th or around there is when the current version is going to close. And then I don't know how long it'll take. I put in here, do we want to do a before and after date for when it reopens? But it's exciting to get a date. I think that was one big question. I think some people were fearful there'd be like 4, 5, 6 years with no Muppets in the parks. It's only going to be like maybe 12 months or something like that. So
what I mean, okay, so I agree with you. It closes in January at some point, right?
Yeah.
Or at least January, February. I'll give it the first 2 months of the year, but probably the first month. How long do you think a redo of this attraction is going to take?
So I feel like the physical stuff isn't going to take that long. Obviously, anytime you change things, you're going to have to do testing and stuff. It's going to have to at least be a couple months. I'm assuming they can do some of the recordings with, today's biggest stars and stuff for the music now, right? They can be working on that now. So I think it'll be open by July 4th.
I mean that's a half a year. Like Matt, our friend Matt from Dis Happenings, I think he said 6 to 9 months.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot faster than that. And then
I was thinking of before or after date of Memorial Day. Would you go before Memorial Day?
I would get optimistic and say before.
Okay,
right. I don't think it's before 3 months, but I don't think it's after 6 months. I think it's between 3 to 6 months. First of all, I think they can do the exterior stuff pretty quickly. It's just a lot of like paint and stuff like that on the guitar and the car that's hanging upside down in the pathway there. I don't think the building changes very much. I think all the posters can change pretty quickly.
Sure.
I think the only thing that really needs to change in the queue is the video that's played in the sound booth. I think
Yeah,
that's
it'll depend
another
how
round
much they're
fest.
going to change the pre-show, right? I think people are hoping maybe they can add some animatronics and stuff like that. I don't know
I
if
don't
they
think
will.
they're not adding.
I mean, I think I'm just trying to be that it's not going to be slapdash, and so, I guess I'm almost hoping it takes like at least 9 months,
Well,
just so it
I
means
don't.
there's a little more substantial.
I don't think there's much to change in the queue that would like if they just change like the posters, some of the decor, um, put some more like Muppet friendly like
Yeah,
trappings around it, and then change the video so it's all like a Muppet video type of
Yeah.
thing. I don't think there's much to change, right?
And I'm assuming the loading area they'll want to make that a little more bright.
That's
yeah,
that's what puts me on like I'm not sure of what to expect, right?
yeah.
Because it's an alleyway, it's got fencing, it's very brutal.
It's a little like
dark.
grungy and
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, I was gonna say grimy, but grungy is a better word. I think they have to kind of brighten that up a little bit. I don't know what the storyline is going to be. Like the storyline originally was kind of weird to begin with. Like come into the alley, get in the car, we're going to the show. Like, and then we're in an alleyway type of thing. But it's very rock and roll, right?
Yeah.
It's very California rock and roll, 70s, 80s type of thing. For the Muppets, like what's the story going to be? Like that's going to be very interesting. And I think the two major parts that have to change that are going to be the most difficult is the loading area and the exit area. When you pull in, it's all like the same kind of like.
Yeah, that's a little
style.
brighter and almost like you're at the club and it's got the red carpet and stuff like that. I think that might not be too big of a change. I think the loading area is the big one where they really have to fit, like what you said, what the story is going to be and change the style of it.
I mean, we were talking about this in Discord a couple hours ago, but like the animatronics, like above, like the countdown area, and kind of, you can have some fun stuff with that. I think the interior of the Gravity building is pretty easy to change. There's really not much to do there. Maybe some different neon, like wooden cutouts or whatever.
Yeah, probably just make them Muppify them, right? Like it's going to be the same type of thing. But the big thing is like, is it still going to be Hollywood or is it going to be somewhere else? But you could just add some little Muppet touches and keep it in California and stuff. Right?
But the point being is, if this is going to be open for the next 8 months, what month are we on? 6. So that next 6 months, let's say, you could build all those things in there, and close it down, and change those things within a week, right? That's not difficult. And the only other thing is changing the ride vehicles, right? So that would only prolong the change, because if they change the ride vehicles, I'm assuming they're only putting new skins on there, so they don't have to do new envelope testing, ride testing, and all this other type of stuff. So that shouldn't be the big. I think the biggest thing is just the exit and the entry of it, like that kind of vibe in there. I think you could change that easily within 6 months, and I think if they really want Hollywood studios to have more stuff open very quickly before the summer goes, I think they can do it in 3 if it's not super difficult. So, but we'll see. I will predict before Memorial Day. Are you on record of saying after? If you think
I'll take I'll say between Memorial Day and July 4th. So
you hear that, Matt? Write it down.
All right,
we did it for him. You want to talk about Disneyland?
Yeah,
also?
I'll try to get through this quick, but I did want to acknowledge it because there was other news that came out and surprised everyone, especially because it came out at like 9 p.m. on the East Coast. Everyone's like, wait, what? Why is this coming out now? Did somebody sit PM and AM wrong or something like that? But Disney gave some more information about they're moving forward with some of the expansion areas for Disneyland, specifically at California Adventure, and also talking about the new parking structure they're going to build and new bridge that's going to go over Harbor Boulevard and stuff like that. I'm not obviously a Disneyland expert, but I've been there and I know exactly where they're talking about and stuff like that. It's really going to change kind of the approach and entrance way to that. Walking down Harbor Boulevard is not always the favorite thing for everyone that's arriving and leaving there. So this is really going to be interesting for that. But talking about the rides, they said the Coco ride will be near the Paradise Gardens Park and Pixar Pier area. Basically looks like the entrance is going to be by the Emotional Whirlwind end of the Incredicoaster, and that the building will be behind the coaster and stuff like that. And they're already going to start construction on that this fall. I think that was initially announced that it was going to start in 2026, so they're already accelerating some of the previous announcements. They also talked about the Avatar Land or experience that's going to be coming. That will go in the Hollywood Land area, and they did mention that Monsters, Inc. Mike and Sully to the Rescue, which used to be Superstar Limo, is going to be closing in early 2026. So, of course, some people were speculating could some of the animatronic figures from that come over to Hollywood Studios and be used to populate Monstropolis and Hollywood Studios. I think that would be fun, even if it's just in the land and kind of small things to kind of make the area look a little bit more lived in. I think that'd be great. it's going to be taking over. Avatar Land will be taking over area that is now a transportation center where a lot of buses pull up and stuff like that. So that's going to have to be relocated. But it's going to be interesting. Supposedly that's just going to be one main ride. Some speculation it might be using the Shanghai Disney Pirates ride system. But it's going to be some sort of water ride, and it's based on the Way of Water film and some of the future films and stuff like that. So I'll have a different sort of take on it than what we have in Animal Kingdom. And as I mentioned, the parking structure with pedestrian bridge over Harbor Boulevard, work on that is supposed to start in 2026. So to be honest, the best thing I can do is point you in the direction of some people that are more experts on Disneyland. I found this one website, Mouska Gamer, did a really good overlay of like kind of where he thinks everything's going to go and where the bridges, the pathway between the hotels and stuff like that is going to go. And then I watched a video from Fresh Baked that they did a really good job. He was like in the park, like, okay, here's where it's going to go. And then afterwards showed on like Google Maps how it would all fit together and kind of tying together being in the park and the maps and stuff like that. So if you're interested in this project, it's always interesting with how landlocked Disneyland is and how they have to make everything work and stuff like that. I highly recommend that video and just following along. So not too much more to add since we're not Disneyland folks, but more projects, more things going on. And like I said, I think the big takeaway for me is that it seems like they're accelerating things from even initial announcements.
I mean, they're going to be doing major construction in what, like 80% of the parks around the world at the same time. Paris, everything but Epcot in Florida. Disneyland Resort's not having any
nothing major that we know of.
No,
probably not. They're going to be further out once they really get into Disneyland Forward.
But they're opening Disneyland Forward is what I was thinking about. DCA, Paris. I know Tokyo is looking at some things in the next couple of years, and Shanghai is just kind of wrapping up some stuff that they just rapidly. So I think that's crazy to think about, and I think people that are just focused on Disney World and like some of the updates that are being like. The parks department is busy. WGI is like pumping out some stuff right now. So that's pretty cool. And just kind of segueing over to construction updates, we'll do that for this week. At the Magic Kingdom, as we talked about, the Top Stories Island Rivers America is closing July 7th, so keep an eye out for that. Animal Kingdom, no real major updates unless you just like watching them move dirt, but nothing significant has happened. It's just kind of reshaping things. I guess the only other thing in Magic Kingdom I did not put on here because we talked about this last week about the cool ship that was demoed in Tomorrowland. There's some other pictures somebody posted.
Yeah, it's even more demoed.
Opened up, right? Like it's completely gone. So I'd be curious what they're going to put there, if anything. In Epcot, you got some test track stuff. Like they revealed the marquee for the land, and I think just within the last couple hours, they showed that they just put a bunch of rocks in it. A lot of people are going nuts about how the new marquee looks terrible and Disney's cheap. I'm like, look, guys, Disney is not cheap. They're building a lot of billions of dollars worth of stuff right now as we speak, right? They are spending money. The only thing that's kind of weird is that they put rocks in it. And I don't care about the rocks. Rocks look fine to me. Like I'm not like going nuts over like a sign for the park. Like if I ask you right now, what is beneath the Tron sign when you walk up to Tron, would you be able to tell me what's beneath the lettering and the ground in your head? Are you able to think about what that is?
I don't think there's really anything there. It's just the stand, right?
But there's something on the cement, right? It just doesn't. It's not like a stick in the ground, right? Like no one looks what's underneath the sign. That's my point. But somebody being able to pick up rocks, I think, is a little weird and maybe dangerous and strange. So I'm curious to see how long that lasts. But marquee is changing the test track. I think people were yelling about the gift shop name. It's the Gear Shop, I think it's called.
Yeah,
right?
Test Track Gear Shop, which
fine.
It's not like a great name, but my point of that was nobody talks about the name of the gift shop at any rides by the name. They're just going to say it's the Test Track Gift Shop. It's like,
I don't think it's a terrible name. It's just a name.
Yeah,
it's the Gear Shop. Okay, somebody came up with it. It's like whoever's thinking about it, it's like, sure, that sounds good. It's the gift shop. People are going to call it the gift shop anyway. So who cares what you call it?
Exactly.
To your original point.
The only other thing I wanted to mention, that last photo though that showed with the sign with the rocks and stuff like that, you could also see those hedge barriers that they use. You could see those there. So, and also where the queue to actually like go into the building, the railings have like the chains up and stuff like that. So it looks like it's getting close to being ready for like real testing and stuff like that.
I am riding this ride, Phil.
Yeah, you were saying that. No matter what happens, whether it's open or not.
My family might have to drive themselves home in July. I have a strong feeling that we're going to be surprised. I don't know if I'll be able to ride it in July, but I think this is going to be open a lot sooner than people think.
The last few days I've been starting. I know when your trip's coming up and stuff like that. For a while I was like, I think it's going to be more like end of August, like in time for Destination D23. I think you're like at least 50-50 now.
Oh, I'll take 50-50.
Yeah.
Hollywood Studios updates. Like we said, there's now temporary walls going up at Muppets.
Muppet Courtyard, yeah.
Courtyard. I was going to say square. That's not right. No. Muppets Courtyard. So you can't get in there right now. I think temporary, permanent walls will go up once the cast member.
I don't know if we mentioned that on here, but they did announce that the final show they're going to be doing just for cast members on the 10th. So obviously after it's close for everybody, and apparently then they're setting up a pizza party for everybody at Pizza Rizzo too. So we're saying it's very.
Why would they punish cast members?
I don't know, but it feels very America corporate that we're rewarding you with a pizza party. But.
So the day that this podcast is released, there's some showings going on today. Let's just put it that way because this is coming out on Tuesday the 10th. So what I'm very curious is how far past permanent walls go up and then like things start happening.
Yeah.
Right. People have been like I'm away from people have been talking about like, oh, they're closing this too soon. They're just trying to save money. I'm like, I think Disney's just going to shut this off so they can just start construction without having to worry about, guests in that area.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. Other than that, I think everything's done. I did not update the hotels. There's not much going on there unless you want to look at more pictures from Lakeshore Lodge, but it's not really worth an entry. So those are the construction updates for the week. We'll be tracking the Rivers of America progress pretty closely. I think we'll transition the construction update to like what's happening at Rivers of America this week.
Yeah.
Unless it goes very slowly, and it's not really the point of that.
Hopefully, I'm assuming BioReconstruct will be flying over quite often to see those updates, and we'll have to see if Drew is going to be doing like he did for Tiana's, where he's there like every day.
I'm sure he will be. Yeah. He'll go back to his favorite spot outside of that bridge and start taking pictures. Okay, so next, there's like two things that we wanted to talk about. We absolutely do not have enough time for both of these.
Nope.
So the two topics that we're going to talk about. So the one that we're going to do next week is a topic called fillers versus skippable attractions. This was your idea, Phil.
Yeah.
Essentially, not everything can be an e-ticket. The park needs a lot of attractions that have low weights or whatever, and we're going to classify filler versus skippable attractions, and we'll talk about that next week. But primarily, I want to talk about this because it was published last Tuesday, and if we talk about it next week, it's just going to be too old at that point. So I've been working on a manifesto for, I don't know, 2.5 months, Phil. I think it's been done.
Yeah, at least like now. That, yeah.
So if you recall, a couple months ago, Len Testa wrote an article about the affordability of Walt Disney World that got some play in the Wall Street Journal and stuff like that. And he basically, what he did was he went through some government reports, consumer reports, and it said that the average American, based off their quintile of income, spent X amount of dollars on travel per year, right? So it's like, so that was his budget for a Disney World trip. Like, the bottom quartile spent $1,500, then it went up to $4,000, then it went to $6,000. It was like whatever it might be. It says, well, how does the cost of a Disney World trip in 2025? How much does that money get you towards a Walt Disney World trip? And basically, it came out to be like, well, if you wanted to do a Disney World trip in 2025, it's only the people in the upper 20% of the income could actually have a good time at Disney World. If you want to go on a budget, you could do this. If you want to go on an extreme budget, you could afford it here. So it's about affordability based off a dollar amount on this report. I personally thought that was a good way of measuring it, but there's another way to measure it and keep it within context, right? Because people always talk about on the internet about like how Disney's so expensive, Disney doesn't care about the middle class, all this other type of stuff. And when people are wrong on the internet, Phil, you know me, I need to prove them wrong. So I spent like probably a good 25 hours putting this together, doing some data. And what I did was I went back 30 years. So from 1994 through 2025, I went back and I looked at rack rates for All-Star Sports, Caribbean Beach Resort, and the Polynesian. And I put everything in 2023 dollars because I didn't have inflation rated numbers for 2024. So everything's at 2023 dollars. So everything has one singular frame of reference. Because that's another big point, Phil, is not everybody realizes how much inflation changes things from your childhood. Like things are more expensive, especially post-COVID. So I had the cost of tickets, the cost of hotels going back 30 years. And I took this from the internet. You could use the Wayback Machine. Shout out to www.info.com. They had a lot of stuff posted back to the 90s, about 98. And from 98 to 94, I found like old brochures and things like that where they publish seasonal rates for hotels. So for all of my information, I have the second full week of June going back 30 years, how much a hotel costs and how much a ticket costs. And I wanted to find out, like, is Disney World much more expensive than it was originally? And the answer is not really, right? So now, granted, let's first talk about hotel costs and park tickets. That is the baseline experience for a Disney World trip. We're talking about the cost of 6 nights, going to each park once. I don't include taxes. I don't include transportation to Orlando, and I don't incorporate food because there's too many variables in all three of those things. So this is the cost of hotels, the cost of tickets, and that's it, right? So, and then in context, I put this into the medium household income for that year, right? So the average medium household income for a family, and I built a percentage of. So a couple things that I came about for just hotels and tickets. So if you look at just hotel alone, the cost of a all-star or value resort only increased $30, about $1 a year since 1994. So for a rack rate for all-star sports was $168 in 1990. $165 in 1994.
And again, this is all in 2023 dollars, right?
Right. So again, all these dollars are equivalent. You can inflate all those numbers to $2025, but the medium household income money that I have a chart for was in 2023 dollars, so I kept that as the baseline. So 1994, $165. Right now, for the second week of June, you can get All-Star Sports with no discounts. We're not talking about any discounts or promotional offers, $192. So over the last 30 years, the cost of that room increased $30, which I think is pretty good, right? For a moderate, the range is a little bit wider. It's about $100. So you went from $238 to $327. So it's about $90 change for Caribbean Beach Resort. And then for deluxe, and this is basically the Polynesian, it's the biggest change. You went from $475 a night all the way up to $779 a night. So it was a $300. Basically almost almost doubled.
No. 60%
about
more or something.
60, 70% more, right? Yeah. So there's a huge hike in the deluxe resorts. So when you combine base tickets, I just use single day tickets and stuff like that, no promotions or anything else like that. So if we want to compare the cost of a value trip, right? This is like, I'm staying on property, I'm getting tickets, I'm going to do it the cheapest way possible. In 1994, that 6-day vacation cost you just under $2,200. Today, it's about $3,400. So the cost of a Disney vacation went up about $1,000 or 30%. The main driver in that, if you've been paying attention, is the cost of tickets. The tickets have gone up quite a bit. Just to kind of give you an idea, 4-day tickets right now for adjusted for inflation are around $600, $567 to be exact. Back then, 30 years ago, it was approximately half that at 72 times 4. So it would be about $300 or so. Call it that, with a little bit of discount on number of tickets. So the cost almost doubled in tickets, and that's where, and again, this is for a family of 4, so everything's multiplied by 4 on tickets. But the cost, the medium household income has increased as well. So in 1994, this vacation for $2,142 was about 3.47 or 3.5% of your medium household income. And in 2025, it's only 4.25%. So it went up less than 1% of your medium household income over that. So it depends. Like on dollars wise, it increased quite a bit, $1,000, 30%. But as a percentage of your income, because most Americans are making more money per year, or most households are making more money
Yeah.
now than they were 30 years ago. It went up by, less than 1%, which is not drastic in my opinion. But it's still $1,000. $1,000 is still $1,000, right? So I'm not saying that that's not a lot of money. I'm just saying that it's not drastic as people think it might be, right? So again, context. Give you an example. For moderates, you went from $2,500 all the way to $4,200, right? So again, your cost of your moderate vacation went up almost $2,000, which was quite a bit. And on the deluxe, you're going from about $4,000 to almost $7,000, right? So obviously, what I take from this on its own is Disney is learning how to parse the different tiers of guests, right? You have people that are staying on a budget and the people that have money to spend. They're able to take more money from the people that have more money to spend than they are for the folks that are coming on a budget trying to experience Walt Disney World in affordable ways. Now, the most important part, Phil, is, as we know, Disney likes to give away perks. They have different things for the parks, that sort of thing. And that does have value, right? For the longest part of the time, in the 2000s, Disney had extra magic hours, which allowed you to get into one park at least 1 hour earlier, and that same park for 3 hours later post-close if you stayed on property, which sometimes for a handful of years, I have it here. So let me run through this. So in 2003, you had early entry turned to extra magic hours where you had 1 extra hour in the morning. In 2005, you have 1 hour in the morning and 3 hours at the end of the night. And in 2013, after 8 years, that 3 hours at the night turned to 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah. That's what I remember mostly,
yep. And then post 2022, it turned into just now a half hour in the morning for each park, right? So drastically changed over time. I basically computed those extra hours into dollars, right? Because you can easily compare hours to dollars when you have a ticket cost and how the length of the park opens. And I calculated, I have a whole chart of all the different hours for each of the parks over the 30 years. And I've calculated that. And a lot of people like to say that the parks were open longer back in the day. They really weren't. They were open because of the extra evening hours, but the actual operated park hours roughly stayed the same throughout the decades. Just like to point that out as well. Anyway, you have a couple of different things you have to take into account for. So you have Magical Express transportation to Orlando, which I really didn't incorporate. It's not really that much money anyway. It's about $100, right? Like $60 for an Uber for your family there and back. So $120 in the grand scheme of things, not a lot of money, but it's still there. Free Magic Bands and the cost of Magic Bands now. And your Fast Pass turning into Genie Plus, turning into Lightning Multipass, right?
Yeah.
So I assumed we have a family, let's say, in the article I wrote, I said there is now a family in 2025 that wants to bring their young children, to the parks for the first time. They want to recreate their experience from 20 years ago. So maybe they were like 13, 14 years old in 2005, 2006. And now it is 20 years later, and they're now in their early 30s, and they have young children, and they want to go. I want to do exactly what I did as a kid because I had such a great time. Their parents gave them such good times. I want to replicate that. So if they want to replicate that, they need to stay at, let's say, they stayed at the Polynesian, or they wanted to stay at a moderate. They wanted to get the same stuff as Fast Pass, the Magical Express, the extra park hours, etc. That's where costs start going through the roof, right? So if you want to compare apples to apples, right now, if you just talk about hotel and tickets at a value resort, that's going to cost you about $34.22, which I said before, right? But if you want to incorporate the value of the perks that you have to purchase now rather than getting for free like you had 20 years ago, the value of that vacation is now $4,300. So there's approximately $1,000 of value that you are not getting anymore for free that you now have to pay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So this is the big thing. I argue this all the time. Disney is not that much more expensive than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago, but you don't get as much for that money as you used to get. Right. Yep. So that's important to mention. Like, everybody's like crying about multi-passes and single passes and all this other type of stuff. You don't need them. You can still have a wonderful time.
Exactly, yeah.
You're not getting the same experience as you got, but you could still go on all the rides and have a good time. Now, let's make a comparison then. Now, with perks, the value of a trip back in, let's say, 2005 was $2,000 value resort, 6 days with all those perks. There is now a $2,300 difference between 2005 and 2025. In 20 years, you lost about $2,000 worth of perks. And this is all adjusted for inflation.
Yeah.
Now, let's say back in 2005, this family, when they were kids, stayed at the Polynesian. I'm just using a drastic example. The value of that trip was about $4,700, and that's with all the perks and everything else associated with it. Right now, to get that same exact experience, they would have to pony up another $3,000. $3,000.
Yeah.
So their trip doubled. Like, let's say, we're a young family. I remember going down when I was a kid. We can afford it, right? And they go check it out. No, they can't, because now that trip is almost $8,000, where it used to be less than $5,000.
Yeah.
So that is my big proponent. So my big takeaway to all of this, and if you want the numbers, I had them on Discord. I'll give you a spreadsheet where I have all this data. And shout out to Ryan W. I know he's listening. He did all the data visualization. We worked together for a couple of weeks, and he did all the graphs. So you go into touring plans. I'm sure if you're not on Discord and you're not following us on Twitter or Blue Sky or anything else, it's linked there. But we'll put it in the show notes somewhere, and I'll make sure I remember to do that when I post this video. But the takeaway, Phil, I know I've been spitting out a lot of numbers, is that Disney is not more expensive if the baseline is just going to the parks, right? But to have the same level of magic you got back in 2005, it's a lot more expensive. It's like it's basically double the cost.
And that's where I see a lot of even from my Disney friends that have been going for a long time, they're saying, I just can't afford it anymore. And it's not that they can't afford to get in. They can't afford to do it the way they did it before. And if they can't do it that way, they don't want to do like a lesser version of it. Whereas
now,
go ahead.
There's some breaking points here too that are interesting, not to interrupt you. So based on the percentage of your median household income, right? So in 1994 at a value resort, right? The cost of a trip it was about 3.5% of your median household income back in 1994. In 2019, this is peak Disney World, right? Most people ever are going to Disney World, right? Was 0.02% less. It was 3.45% of median household income versus 3.47. I mean, that's basically the same thing. But that was where the turning point happened. Here's the trend since 2019, basically COVID and Chapek take over, right? This is all percentage of median household income for the Disney trip. 3.45, that jumped to 3.93, so it was almost a 0.5 increase. Then 0.93 to 4.02, which was, that's from 2019 to 2020, which things kind of cratered at that point. But from 2020 to 2021 to 2022, there was a 0.8 jump. So 2022 and 2023 stayed relatively even. Then it started jumping all the way into 2025, which is 5.36, right? Wow. So between 2019 and 2025, there's a 2% increase in the cost of a Walt Disney World trip to have the same level of perks and access to the parks in the space of 6 years. That's a 2% increase. That is more than half the cost of a Disney World trip of your medium household income in 1994. It's absolutely ridiculous how much more expensive. And it all came with the cost of the lightning lanes.
Yeah, that's basically the big thing. Yeah.
And ticket costs too, right?
And
everything else. So that is where all of your money is going. So the lesson learned is if you want to go to Disney World, try to learn to survive without the lightning lane multi-passes and be smart with your ticket costs, essentially. Find a way to get there cheaper. Now, Phil, before we move on, because now we're just over the hour, we need to do the DVC engagement real quick. Can you tell me, in your mind, or your best guess, when was the peak time to go to Disney World and get the best bang for your buck?
Well, I saw it. I've read your article, so I know when it is. I'm sorry about that.
Go ahead. Yes.
So it was around 2005-ish, right?
Yeah, 2000 for a value resort, and this is it's kind of a little different as you go across. But if you just wanted for the best bang for your buck staying at a value resort, it was in 2006. It was less than 3% of the median household income. You got the most access to the park for park hours, and fast passes were just starting to kick up and get popular, right? Or that system was up and running. In a moderate, it's roughly the same amount of time. It was in 2005 because you were less than 4% of your median household income. And then if you want to look at deluxes, it's a different story. It's the farther back you go, the better it gets, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what everyone was. I mean, obviously they're not adjusting for inflation, but like the year Disney opened, how it was like the Polynesian was like $90 a night or something like that.
So again, Disney learned how to stratify there's a marketing term for it. I'm forgetting it right now. The category of spenders, there's a marketing term for it where they basically build a profile for people who spend money. Like all marketers do that. And they're marketing like, okay, well, these people that are deluxe people, they have a lot more money they can spend. How do we get more money from them?
Yep.
I think they've priced it accordingly. I don't think there's a ceiling yet on deluxe guests, but they've found the ceiling for value and moderate guests a long time ago. It's remained consistent. And I'll have to give Disney credit for that. But yeah, so if you want your time machine, go back to 2005, 2006, and you have your best time at value and moderate guests as our family is. We're not deluxe guests. But that was my thing. Find it on touring plans. There's a lot of different charts. Thanks to Ryan again. And you can kind of like, it's a good reference point. So next time somebody says Disney has never been more expensive, you can say, well, that's true. However, there's some caveats to that. So I don't know. I always like numbers and giving things context. And hopefully I did that well. So that being said, on to DVC engagement before we get too long-winded in this podcast. Last week, Phil, you wanted to ask with the GO82 opening soon. I still can't get a reservation for that, by the way. And we're continuing around the Beacon Barrel, the tavern for pirates in the Magic Kingdom. What themed lounge would you like to see at Walt Disney World in a park or at a resort? And you can't say Haunted Mansion, which was my original thought. So, Phil, you have your answer here. What lounge would you like to see next?
Yeah, so I realize my answer to almost all these types of questions is something related to the Society of Explorers and Adventurers. So
the question should be you can't say Haunted Mansion
yeah. Although I did have the caveat as maybe putting it at the top of the Swiss Re family treehouse just to see people have to like kind of like stagger down the steps after they've been at the lounge. But
you're a masochist.
The other idea I had where it could either be maybe related to the Matterhorn or to Expedition Everest, but something where it's sort of like a Swiss chalet or ski lodge type feel that relates to one of the big mountain coasters and stuff like that, where you're up in the snow and maybe you could have fondue or shots of kirsch or something like that, where it's got, I don't know, there's always that like wooden ski lodge feel. It's kind of be cozy with fires going and stuff like that, where I feel like that's something that we don't really see represented in the parks yet. And maybe you could see overlook the people riding the rides and stuff like that, but something related to kind of like that would fit the ski lodge mentality, that sort of thing.
I like that. My idea doesn't include alcohol whatsoever, Phil.
That's fine. Not everyone's did. Not everyone answers did. Some people had some unique ideas. So yeah.
So I didn't read a lot of these. I want to read them on the show and kind of be surprised with them. So my idea is there's plenty of lounges all over the place. My kids loved the lounges that they saw on the Wish as they're showing how they're building them and stuff like that. My daughter's fascinated with the Haunted Mansion one. I think I mentioned that last week.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, well, kids should have some fun in some of these lounges, right? So my idea is I don't know where they would put it. Put it in the Magic Kingdom somewhere, put it in maybe the Contemporary or something else like that, but have Mickey Mouse's Clubhouse somewhere where they have the animatronic, like just like kind of like the, something where you have the Adventurers Club type of thing where you have the walls that come in alive and you have all the little gadgets, whatever. But all it is a big giant bar, but it's a milkshake shop. So the kids could come in and get a milkshake or a fancy soda or some kind of beverage that kids can enjoy, lemonade type of thing. And they could come in and they could sing, Mickey Mouse's Clubhouse's theme song. You might have Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse or somebody behind the bar kind of dancing around, leading songs and stuff like that. But you go in for 40 minutes and you come out, right? It's not a meal. It's priced slightly less than a character meal to come in, maybe because, if it's something where you could just get a reservation for a walk-in, it's just to be pounded.
Right.
So I think there has to be a pre-cost associated with it just for it to work. Maybe it's like $40 a person. You come in, you can wave out. Like I'm thinking like the Disney Junior Dance Party meets Chef Mickey's, but you don't eat food. You just drink like a root beer float or something else like that, and you kind of
Like an old soda shop and
and then you see the characters jump around, you sing some songs, and then you kind of leave and stuff like that. So that's my idea for a lounge. I think it'd be pretty cool. I think you'd have to do it at a resort and not at a park, though.
I think so. Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little. They used to do the Pirates Voyage thing that left from one of the resorts, where all the kids would go off on a boat and pirates and stuff like that. So it's like that type of a thing, but a lounge that would be with the Mickey and stuff like that.
I think it'd be really cool.
Yep. So it's from the community, Mama Six said it would be great to see a lounge adjacent to the safari and Animal Kingdom, so you could have big windows that overlook the animals. So it's kind of like when I guess you're at Animal Kingdom Lodge or Kidani and eating at Sanaa or something like that, but actually in the park and more of a lounge overlook area.
This exists, and it's called what's it called? The Taste of the Savannah.
Well, they have the Savor the Savannah tour.
Savor the Savannah.
Yeah,
and that's
so I guess
basically what it is.
Yeah, so I guess the idea of like something similar to that, but that's just the lounge. You don't have to go on the whole tour and take 2 hours and stuff like that. So.
Well, there is a little bit of a tour, but most of it is the meal, though. That's what they're advertising. That's
what they advertise, but you do go around in the truck and stuff like that for a little bit too. So
it's your own little private safari type of ride,
exactly.
right? But you can do this if you really want to.
Yeah. TL Madden said he was looking at another kid-friendly one as well, and said he would like the vibe on Main Street. So something that enabled you to just sit out on the porch and watching the masses go by. Things that you can kind of do now, but I guess more of around the idea of a lounge. Just maybe similar to what you're saying, where you can go in and get a soda or fancy, like a soda shop type thing. And then
this would have to be on the second level somewhere.
Yeah, something like that, or like a roped off area or something like that. Yeah, second level would work out. That'd be kind of interesting looking down over on Main Street and stuff like that. He said, or else just make Gaston's Tavern an actual tavern.
See, I'm down with that. I think that'd be fun.
That's one. I know this is a tangent, but in Villains Land, it'd be fun if there was an actual tavern like Gaston's Tavern. But I know they have the one already.
Well, I mean, you could do what is the the one from Rapunzel.
The
something duck.
The duck. Yeah, the squishy duck. No, that's killing me now.
We're terrible Disney fans right now.
Oh.
But yeah, I think it'd be fun to have something that's like a sing along. What is it?
Snuggly Duckling.
Snuggly Duckling. There you go.
That.
Yes.
Not the squishy duck. I was close.
We had duck. But yeah, Gaston's Tavern would be really cool. I think that'd be fun. I think just something like if you can mix in a place where you can get like a snack and an adult beverage or a beverage for kids, and then have like the Frozen sing along kind of like songs, get like 2 cast members kind of playing like an act type of thing, but not a stage, but kind of like behind the bar. I think that'd be fun.
Yep. Herdamaniac said somehow to shoot on into Navi River Journey. So something where it was like the leftover mess hall from the people that were there before, or somehow they took it over and they made it into a lounge and that sort of thing that overlooked that kind of beautiful ride, which I think that would be a nice expanded use of that because it's a nice space, but the ride's so short and stuff like that.
That'd be awesome. Basically, Pinocchio's Village House overlooking Small
Navi
World.
River Journey, yeah, but with drinks.
Yes, and better food.
Yep.
Much better food.
Yeah. And then Music Life for me said thinking about something different and not really looking for a lounge type thing, but the idea would be leveraging the Odyssey building or Communicore Hall or something like that, but something in Epcot where you're celebrating the world, but having it around whatever sporting event is going on around the world. So the idea is you could go into the Odyssey and they're having screens that are showing all the World Cup games or something like that when that's going on, or the Olympics. And this way you can go and just kind of hang out and root on your team or not. And like people who are visiting from the other parts of the world could check out their team or what's going on in their home country or something like that.
Wasn't it Julie on Discord mentioning that she remembers seeing the World Cup?
They did it one year for World Cup. I don't know if it was in the Odyssey or I think they just set up like outdoor screens somewhere in Epcot and that sort of thing. But the idea is like recreating that, but at like using the Odyssey or something a little bit semi-permanent.
And by the way, we have to give her this week's podcast because she helped me out with my Magic Band. She went into Epcot and bought use the Disney World shipping stuff to ship my daughter a Stitch Magic Band Plus for our upcoming trip.
And we can also give it to her because she picked up one of the new Epcot popcorn buckets for me. So,
oh, look at that! She's going shopping for both of us. All right, awesome. Yeah, she's awesome, and we want to thank her for helping us with that one. Now I just got to find my mother a
the Ratatouille one, yeah.
But they're not at the park. She said she couldn't find one.
Oh, wow. Because I know we have my oldest. It's already assigned to her, so I can't give it to you. But it's
I'm not asking for it, but thank you.
It was when Ratatouille first opened. They had a limited edition one that she got.
Is it a Magic Band or Magic Band Plus?
It's a Magic Band 2.0. Yeah.
So I want my mom to get the Magic Band Plus. Just
because.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a Ratatouille Plus.
They don't. Yeah. I haven't been able to find it. I can't even. I'm trying to remember. I think all the ones that I've Googled were just the ones that your probably daughter has, the MB2s. But yeah, I think Disney's like really leaning on these lounges. I think you'll see more and more like GO82 opening. I think you have this pirate one's going to be highly crowded.
That might be the toughest reservation to get for a while. That pirate one.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked in a couple of days, but I looked about 4 days ago, and all the reservations that I want. Like, if let's say I completely missed my 60-day mark, like 3 weeks ago, like I can still find. I rambled on at the end of the last week's show about like those things are still available to some degree or another. Like I could get the ADRs I wanted, maybe not on the day that I wanted, but like I could make it work. And to me, that's absolutely amazing. Like I don't know what to expect for my upcoming trip. I mean, granted, it's going to be 150 degrees outside, but things are going to be available. So I'm curious to see what wait times are going to be and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that. So in any case, next week, I think we're going to talk about some minor trip updates. I think that's going to be a segment that I'm going to give on. Anyway, next week's DVC, this is going back to the cars. Does cars belong in the Magic Kingdom? I want to know from everybody out there, tweet at us, go on Discord, something. Is there an IP that does not belong in the Magic Kingdom? Is there something that just does not belong in the Magic Kingdom? And it could be like Indiana Jones. It could be Star Wars. It doesn't have to be like a Disney-related IP, but it has to be something under the Disney umbrella.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can think of is Aliens and Predator. Doesn't belong in the Magic Kingdom. That is it.
Although they almost had it. They had it. Pretty close.
I know, and they got rid of it probably for good reason. That only comes to mind because there's a bunch of stuff coming on Hulu that has like the Predator stuff. That's all coming out this fall. Anyway, is there an IP that doesn't belong? I don't think there is, unless it's like adverse to children. Right. But I'm curious what everybody else thinks. Is there something that just doesn't belong? But granted, that means there might be a place that it belongs better than the Magic Kingdom, right? Right. But there's just something that's strictly like should not be allowed.
If they were announcing that this was a land or a ride or something in Magic Kingdom, you'd be like, I don't know about that, like that.
Yeah, it just doesn't work for whatever reason, and it's a valid opinion. I mean, it could be a wrong opinion, but it's your opinion, and it's fine. But I want to know. We'll talk about it next week. Phil, anything that we forgot that we have to mention?
I think we're good. Just a reminder of all our social media accounts. We are at the DBC Pod everywhere, and hit us up on that if you got anything. And remember to like and subscribe on YouTube and leave some comments.
If you're not on Discord, leave the answer to the DBC engagement in the comments in the YouTube video.
Yep.
You should do that. That'd be fun. I'd appreciate that. Anyway, thanks for watching and listening, everybody, and we will catch you.
Take care.